Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sports Taza. With me today, I have Mr. Abhijeet Kulkarni. Abhijeet Kulkarni is the author of the Gopichand Factor. He's recently written a book, and it talks about the rise of Indian badminton. Along with that, he has also been a sports journalist with the Press Trust of India, Hindustan Times, Mumbai Mirror, and very recently the Scroll.in. And in his free time, whenever he is not writing, he's busy promoting physical literacy in young children. Thank you, sir. Good to have you here.
Thank you. It's
So,
a pleasure to be here.
thank you for coming here on such short notice. And you have written a lot about badminton. तो सर आपके टाइम पे जब क्रिकेट इतना फेमस था, any specific reason कि आप you chose Olympic sports and then went into badminton? So why not take a popular sport and go into something which was not popular in, let's say, towards the early 2000s?
So I don't know whether like I chose badminton and over cricket or anything. When I was playing, I played football, and then over the years, I also played a couple of other sports for the inter schools, inter universities. But the point was when I came into journalism, it was always something like everybody covered cricket, and to a large extent, I also covered cricket initially. But the thing is, no, I worked with an agency where you had to cover various sports. uh, Having been a sports person, I had interest in all sports. It's not like I wanted to cover just cricket or something. And it so happened that after Gopichand became the All England champion and other badminton things started, it was very clear that somebody needed to cover the other sports. And because I was interested in covering other sports, I started going to the nationals, I started going to the other events, and slowly, that interest in badminton got generated. There was a time when I and one Hindu reporter from whichever region the tournament was going to happen used to be the only two people who were there during tournaments, and so in a way, I also got a lot of access to badminton issues, and it became easier for me to cover the sport. That is how my coverage of badminton started.
Understood. So, sir, how excited are you? Tokyo Olympics begins tomorrow, and India has sent off four people contingent. Apart from badminton, also this is India's highest contingent that has gone. India has sent about 125 athletes representing in 18 sports. So, how excited are you for Olympics 2021?
Extremely excited. I would have ideally loved to be there, but because this COVID situation and all the other things, I couldn't go there. But the point is that there are a couple of things badminton, apart from wrestling and shooting, probably are the only events in which Indians have won back-to-back medals. And actually, badminton looks favorite to complete a hat trick of medals, with Sindhu going there in women's singles and the defending world champion. Then you have a Sai Praneeth, you have a Chirag Shetty and Satvik Sairaj, who are capable of winning a medal. So, as a badminton correspondent, it's very exciting to see that you have an opportunity that India could actually win three consecutive medals in Olympics. It has never happened in Indian sports, so it's very exciting.
So, sir, I'll come to these four players, but you've always said that it is very important to enjoy sports and we should not just look at wins, etc. But when you're competing at the professional level or in a stage of Olympics, तब सर पार्टिसिपेशन के लिए मतलब इट्स नॉट कि इंडिया के प्लेयर्स पार्टिसिपेट करना चाह रहे हैं. व्हाट इज योर टेक ऑन दिस कि मतलब शुड वी एज स्पेक्टेटर्स have our hopes high? Should we just enjoy the sport? How should we treat it?
Think no. Once you go to the Olympics, I don't think you go there to just participate. If you are good enough to win a medal, you want to win a medal because it's probably the highest stage. So as spectators, we having expectations is not wrong. I think what is wrong in a way when I see sports, because I work a lot with these individual athletes somewhere in their growing up stage in their careers. I have seen that what happens is that we expect too much. Sometimes we need to understand that there's a journey, there is a time, and like if I take the example of Satvik and Chirag, I won't be very upset if they don't win a medal here. I would be expecting them to be there at their prime in Paris 2024, because then they would have played 7 years together. They would have known each other together. What I would want to see is they giving their 100%, playing their best badminton, and then hoping that they would make it to the stage where they can be a medal contender in this tournament. So, as fans, we also need to understand the where the player stands. We can't expect every player of those 120 to go and win a medal. But even those who are our medal prospects, what we need to see is how did they play, whether something went wrong which could have not gone wrong, which would have worked. I think as spectators also, if we educate ourselves about the sport, it is more fun to watch sports.
So, sir, yesterday only there's this leading data and technology company called Grace Note that said India is expected, the medal prediction is 19, which is way higher. Our highest tally has been 6 in 2012. So, I personally am not expecting 19. That is too optimistic. But anywhere near double digits will be a huge achievement for India. And since you spoke about Satwik and Chirag Shetty, उनका ग्रुप सर बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग है मतलब दे हैव द टॉप इंडोनेशियन टॉप टाइपिंग डबल्स प्लेयर इन दैट बी साई प्रणीत ही मे नॉट बी रैंक इन द टॉप 10 पर अगर वो अपना ग्रुप स्टेज भी क्लियर करते हैं तो इन द क्वार्टर्स he will have to face Kento Momoto, who is ranked number 1 right now. Sir, you're on mute, right? You're on mute.
Yeah, no, I heard your question. The thing is, if you look at the 2019 result, 2019 was the last time anybody played in that venue. Sai Praneeth reached the semi-finals of the tournament and again lost to Kenta Momoto. Uh, it is like if you have known Sai, he loves a court which plays perfect. The thing is, no, while we speak about like you are a badminton player, so you would understand that most of our players still play in non-AC halls, practice in non-AC halls, where the prediction of the flight of the shuttle is easy. You know what you're doing with it. When you go to big tournaments like this, a lot of times the AC drift is a something that you need to adapt and play with. My interactions with all the players in Tokyo tells me that we have the court conditions are as perfect as possible, which means every player is going to enjoy playing in that court, and these are the courts that Sai enjoy playing. My only problem with Sai Praneeth is that Sai Praneeth also enjoys aggressive opponents whose pace he can use. And in the initial tournament, till Kento Momota, he has players who will enjoy tiring him up. So it's a 50-50 chance that he can beat them. So in a way, every match for him is going to be a 50-50. But I hope that he can raise the bar in Tokyo.
Definitely. That's very glad to hear that the court is quite adaptable, quite favorable to our players. Another good thing is Carolina Marin is not there. One huge advantage for Sindhu, I would say. That just narrows the list to Taizu Ewing and Yamaguchi, etc. I'm not saying there's no competition, but at least one of the top players, one medal prospect is reduced. So that is something good for the Indian team. Sir, I'll ask you something, sir, and I'm proud of it. I'm not taking it negatively. In badminton, it is one sport jahan glass ceiling has easily been broken. For example, our girls are doing much better than men's, and it's a thing to be proud about. So, and I'm very happy that finally in one sport, at least the glass ceiling is broken. Females are actually doing much better, and they have become household names, household stars among the youth as well. So why do you think this has happened? I know Shrikant had got number 1 ranking in 2017, but उसके अलावा कुछ ज़्यादा men's का इतना हुआ नहीं है.
I think from my personal experience about Indian badminton or Indian sport as a whole, I always think that Indian men players physically mature a bit late. So the performance starts coming a bit later at the age of 24, 25. And then what happens is by the time you're 24, 25 and the performance starts coming, there is a period where you stop believing in yourself, and it's a big challenge. Whereas when you see Sindhu and Saina, they started performing when they were 17 and 18, rather 16. So the rise was very fast. Also, the amount of what they won was so big that it was easier for them to become household names. In terms of Shrikant, like if you see Saina was extremely consistent. For 10 years, she was at least winning one or two major tournaments. Shrikant won in 2014, then he won five in 2017. Then again, he did not win anything. So to become household names, to become somebody like a brand, you need to be consistent. Sindhu has been consistent at World Championship and major tournaments, though she is not consistent at BWF Tour. So that way, it was easy for the girls to become a brand,
Absolutely. I
which was
think
not the case with women.
consistency is one very important attribute which you need. But Sir, Sindhu has not gone with Gopichand as a national coach. What is your take on this? She has gone with Park Sai-sung. So, what is your take on this?
Uh, Personally, if you ask me, I'll always leave it to the player, because what happens is over the years as a player, you develop as a player, you think of new things, you want certain changes, and as a person, as somebody who has been associated with sports for a long time, I would go with the player's choice. And now the difference between 2016 and 2021 is that till 2016, Sindhu was only used to a Gopichand or his assistants there. But since 2017, first Mulio came, then Kim came, then along with Kim Park came. So Sindhu has got used to training with different coaches. She has understood what she wants. That does not mean I'm saying that because she won a medal with Gopi and now she has chosen a coach, she's going to win a medal. But we need to give her that freedom to pick who the coach should be for her during the matches, and she has made that call. We should just back her. The one area which I wonder, and I have written extensively about it, is that because she hasn't got to test whatever she has been working with Park in actual tournaments, it could be interesting if things don't work out. How does she react?
Absolutely, because you've often seen this with players. या तो जब ज़्यादा success आ जाती है, एकदम failure आ जाता है, you tend to take impulsive decisions. And often, not just in badminton, other sports also, blame काफ़ी हद तक coaches पे जाता है और they face the brunt or they face the axe for it. So, sir, one very interesting thing that I found in your book was, and I personally, even till before reading, believed कि इंडिया में ना टैलेंट बहुत है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नहीं है, इसलिए ओलंपिक्स में अच्छा नहीं कर पा रहे. यू रोड वेरी कॉन्ट्रडिक्टिंग थिंग कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इज स्टिल द लास्ट थिंग, मेरे लिए प्रायोरिटी पीपल प्रोग्राम है. What led to you making this or saying this statement?
See, in a way, I have covered sports internationally. I've covered Asian Games. I've covered multi-sport events all around the world. And when I spoke to a lot of other people, coaches, the one thing stood out was there have been African countries where there have been no infrastructure. The infrastructure is worse than what we have. The point
Yeah,
is, and that is something which we since childhood we have seen this, it is the mentor that is important. You may have talent, you may have infrastructure, but you don't have the person to guide you, you are still not going to be successful. And that is why I personally think that it is the coaches which are important rather than the infrastructure. You can, if you have read Andre Agassi's book, Open, in
open.
which his physical trainer speaks about, you can use any equipment to train. You don't need the perfect gym. You can use equipment that are there and use it to your benefit. The same way, lack of infrastructure, yes, it is an hindrance, because there are not enough, in a way, the infrastructure is there are not enough chances or places to play. You live in Delhi, so in Delhi there are a lot of public courts. I live in Mumbai where there are no public courts. So in that way, we need infrastructure where we need badminton courts. But do we need excellent state of art infrastructure to make champions? No. Even if we have it and we don't have the right coaches, we are not going to produce champions. So I think,
Absolutely.
like if you go to USA and all, there is infrastructure, but there are no players because again, it's not the primary sport there. So it's a mix and match. But I personally think that if unless you have a coach with a vision or a leader with a vision, it's very difficult. Even just because you have infrastructure, you are not going to produce champions.
तो सर ये मेरे लिए डेफिनेटली एक आई ओपनिंग था. आई ऑलवेज हैड द बिलीफ इंडिया में टैलेंट बहुत है, वी हैव अ बिलियन प्लस पीपल, एंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे मैं ब्लेम डालता था. बट नाउ गोइंग फॉरवर्ड आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू पुट द ब्लेम ऑन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर अलोन. डेफिनेटली, सिंस यू स्पोक अबाउट कोचेस, so it is well aware in the public eye, the BAI and Gopichand are not seeing eye to eye. And when you have the highest sport authority in India not seeing eye to eye with the coach, how can the talent develop and grow then?
I think what we are missing the point now, and this is something I always talk about, and not many people like. BAI and the national coach fighting is only about the national squad, and it is probably only about the top 10, 15 players in the country. When we are looking at developing talent, it is the grassroots coaches which develop talent. It is not the national squad. So you come to the national squad and you take that major leap to become international players. But it is primarily the grassroots coaches which are the backbone of producing talent. Just like our education system, you cannot be an IIT unless you learn mathematics really, really well in your school.
Sir,
So
absolutely. And now, since you've mentioned about grassroots, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what next after Saina and Sindhu? I am not seeing a lot of flurry of youngsters coming in. And so, you are talking about grassroots development, talking about grooming. And the best way youngsters can get groomed is when the senior players are there in the squad. So, what is the future ahead? Let's say 3-4 years down the line, specifically in women's badminton, after Saina and Sindhu, what next?
if you ask me, I can rattle out a couple of names, but I cannot guarantee that they can be a next Saina or Sindhu. Again, the same thing. Saina and Sindhu were special, are special. Not everybody can be a Saina and Sindhu, but there are players. There's a Tasneem Mir from Gujarat. There is a Samia Faruqi from Hyderabad. Then
But sir,
there
do you
is
think there's sufficient or a sustainable cycle being created to groom the younger players right now in system?
No, and I have written that in my book that I am not happy with the way the next generation has been groomed. And this is a typical Indian problem, or rather, typical administration problem. When you have stars performing, you only focus on them. You don't go and look for the future. I think the best countries which develop sporting talent and have a battery of players, they continue investing in the junior squad, the next rung, the third rung, uh, while the top stars are at their best. And I think cricket is the best example where India A, the India under 19s keep playing. But that has not been the case with badminton. And this obsession with Olympics, I think that we decide to spend too much money on all these guys who are going to the Olympics, and we don't leave budgets for the other players to be groomed with enough exposure.
So, sir, very interesting point you mentioned. And since you brought cricket in, I'd like to compare the IPL and the PBL in this case. We know the massive success and the massive league across the world, not just India, that IPL has become. And that has translated into other domestic leagues, for example, Pro Kabaddi League, Badminton League also. But with the last season getting cancelled, I understand that certain players do get a monetary advantage for these 2 weeks. But where do you see PBL going?
I don't know. Means PBL will sustain itself. Probably they'll make money, but I'm not sure badminton is going anywhere. I have a personally different view on these things. A league in a team event, a short league in a team event as a branding exercise is brilliant. Probably because it's team event. What happens is the teams continue to invest in the sport outside that league because they need cheaper players to come and play. In an individual sport league where you know that one on one you have to play, and a star only is going to win a match, an experienced player is only going to, you are not going to invest in the development of the game. And that is what the problem with badminton or even the table tennis league is. Nobody invests in the development of the sport. The team owners, it's like a festival. You play for 21 days and then you disperse and you only gather for the next festival. So in that way, it
Absolutely. So, sir,
hasn't been in badminton.
in the IPL जैसे एक रूल है कि you have to make 7 Indians out of player out of the playing 11. PBL में ये रूल है कि only one Indian must play.
Yes.
And that one Indian is very easy to find a star for that one Indian. And that is why
Yes.
जो नीचे से talent आ रहा है ना वो squad में होंगे. They may be interacting with other members, getting that platform in the coaching, and it's just a 2 week camp. So it's not a lot. But they're not actually getting to perform on the stage.
Yeah. Earlier, the rule was two. So this is a backstory that during one of the auctions, one of the teams forgot to take like buy two players out of the auction, and then a compromise formula was found that only one player is mandatory to play.
Oh,
So that's a backstory to it. But the point is, even if the players are earlier, there used to be a rule that an under 19 player has to be with the team, which was later discontinued. But none of it helped because what happened then was that the teams were taking players because somebody was known to the owner, somebody was known to the coach, and that grooming didn't work. You needed to groom players who were your future stars, which did not happen. And that was the problem. Also, I don't think there is enough what do you say, in the league structure there is enough way to maneuver around and getting players to get, because in badminton what happens is like when the Chinese come or the Koreans come or the Japanese come and play in the league, the communication is a problem. And unlike in cricket or football, where you're getting quality foreign coaches, none of these Indian teams have invested in quality foreign coaches. The only time Hyderabad Hunters, when they had a Marines coach as part of the squad coach. Otherwise, it is basically coaches within India who are part of the coaching, who are coaches of this team. So I don't think it really helps the juniors to pick up a lot. Yes, they pick up a lot through watching these stars play. That is an advantage, but I think we can do a lot more than what we are doing right.
absolutely. So, sir, we've got a question from one of our viewers. Sir, why the talented athlete Anju Bobby George could not win a medal?
I think Anju Babu George is a old story, but yeah, she won a world championship medal, and it was never easy. Like in that way, Anju Babu George is a trendsetter, and before her, there was nobody who even came close to winning a medal. I think she's a trendsetter, and she taught us that you could reach that far. I think, and she is grooming a couple of long jumpers at her academy. I think she can produce a champion. Like a Gopichand never won a medal, but he produced two medalists. The same way, I think Anju Babu George is now focusing on producing a medalist.
Definitely. And, sir, we have often spoken about, you've written a lot about Gopi Chand, but do you think there is some sort of a conflict of interest because he's the chief national coach, he's running a private academy? So, do you think there is some, and he's also the Telangana Badminton Association secretary? So do you think, because in cricket we've seen this, कि अगर आप एक IPL team के coach हो, so there is a conflict of interest in you being a part of the national selection committee. But out here, the chief selection or the chief national selector who trains the squad, who has a huge say in squad selection, is running his massive private academy, and that's the biggest in India.
It's a structural problem, and it's the biggest in India today. Till 2006, from 2002, Vimal Kumar was the chief national coach and running the badminton academy, and the camps used to be held there. The problem again is here there is a problem of infrastructure because none of the size centers are equipped to hold camps. They are not good enough to hold camps. So unless you have a camp at the Indira Gandhi Stadium, you cannot have high quality national camps in any of the size centers. So what do? Then you end up using the academy infrastructure of the chief coach, which used to happen earlier. All the camps used to happen in Bangalore till Vimal Kumar was the chief coach. Then when Gopichand became the chief coach, the camp shifted to Hyderabad. It's a structural problem. I think the other problem is the financial problem. So if you become a chief national coach and you are an Indian, probably the maximum you can be paid when Gopi took over was 25,000 rupees. So if your chief coach is going to be paid at 25,000 rupees, how is he going to earn his living? And so if he's going to run his own academy, he either can run his academy or he can be a chief coach. Uh, we pay a lot of money to our foreign coaches. We don't pay a lot of money to our Indian coaches. Now it has been revised where people are being paid 60,000, 70,000, 80,000. But when your foreign coach is being paid $7,000 a month and your national coach is going to be paid 1 lakh rupees a month, I don't think it works out.
Absolutely. Also, sir, when cricket happened in India, IPL happened, a lot of people objected that there are a lot of deaths around, the pandemic has not ended, the wave is just increasing, and you're celebrating, enjoying sports. And same is happening in Tokyo. I know there's no spectators allowed, but even the Tokyo Medical Association has written that we do not want Olympics to happen right now. Either you should postpone them or suspend them. And there is a surge in the Japanese population due to pandemic as well. And we have about 80-90,000 athletes and sports staff coming into new country. So in such a case, do you think, I understand for the audience who are fatigued at home by COVID, it's a huge major distraction, it's a plus point. But when you see, if in my family people are suffering, people are getting the pandemic, and on TV you see other people celebrating sport, what is your view on that? Should Olympics be held right now? Should it be postponed? What is your view on that? And we'll close it with this one.
See, morally, no, it should not happen. But financially, I can understand why the Olympics is important for the sporting world. We also want players to earn. If you see the finances of the Olympics or the Indian International Olympic Committee, 80 to 90% of its revenue comes from the Olympics and the multi sport events. Now, if you do not hold the Olympics, I think IOC loses around 3 to 4 billion, which comes from the NBC as the television revenue. There was a study which came in about a few months ago, where a guy spoke about how that money which comes to IOC is distributed among national sports federations. And out of the 28, there are about 15 who survive the 4-year cycle because the money comes from IOC. If that money does not come from IOC, most of these sports won't survive. The international federations won't survive. If the international federations won't survive, the players won't survive because there would be no tournaments. Which would mean the reason IOC is going ahead and taking that risk is simply because if the Olympics doesn't happen, the next 3 years, a lot of federations suffer. So all those federations have been pushing IOC to hold the Olympics. So
Absolutely, I agree. It's a vicious
it's a
cycle.
catch 22 say. Yeah, it's a catch 22
Yeah,
situation for
yeah,
everybody.
definitely. And that's why probably for the 2032 Olympics bid, Brisbane has got it with no one else bidding for it as well. Because hosting the Olympics is not an easy task. And even the Japanese Olympics, the Tokyo Olympics, is expected to cost about 28 to 30 billion dollars, which is huge. So just on a closing note, I'll take this last question from another viewer. The question is why Indians don't build high performance academies like AIS or upgrade SAI for Olympic athletes so that they don't have to train abroad in other countries.
We have ASI or Sports Authority of India's Patiala complex has all the facilities to hold hold all these camps. What we really don't understand, I think that is why when I started for one of your question, I said we need to educate ourselves more as fans. It's also about training in different situations. So where do you go for high altitude training? Also, a lot of times when you go abroad, you get the coaches there to work with you. It's not just about infrastructure always. They go there because you get better sparring partners. You go there because you need to train in a certain kind of atmosphere or environment. So like Japan is quite hot. When you had a when you go went to Brazil, you needed to have train at a different time difference because you have to look at the time difference of Brazil. Now if you trained in India, you had to train at 12 in the night to be ready for the Brazil time. Now how do you do that? So there are a lot of factors why we go abroad and train. It is not just because we don't have infrastructure. We need
Understood.
to understand that.
Understood. So on this note, I'd like to thank you for coming. And India's first match, badminton, starts on 24th July, 8:50 in
Yeah.
the morning. We have the men's doubles first. Then we have Sai Praneeth, and then we have Sindhu playing a first match. Sindhu has a relatively easier group stage. So,
Yes.
and the doubles men pair have a tougher group stage. So, hoping for the best. All of us will be cheering for India, and hopefully, it'll help us in these tough times and give some enjoyment at least. Thank you, sir, for coming.
Thank you.